Dispatchers help callers on the worst days of their lives. For over 25 years, we've been there. A silent partner in millions of calls thanks to our redundant and diverse networks that ensure call delivery. Today, cities are bigger, traffic more congested, and the challenge is more complex. But you're never alone, because InDigital is quietly improving, implementing, and driving the next generation of 911, so you're supported in every situation. Make the switch at indigital.net.
My job is all about purpose.
Just the ability to make a difference, to help someone be able to go home at the end of the day.
My great-grandfather started the volunteer fire department in Springfield, Nebraska. My grandmother was a nurse. My uncle was a fire chief in Atlanta, Georgia. So somewhere down the line, it was my purpose to be doing this.
Yeah, we're a family here.
The data we get from Rapid SOS is life-saving.
Have you ever met a 911 professional and asked, what's the worst call you've ever taken? Well, here's your answer. I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. You were with me from the beginning, Grandma. 27 years later, I took the 911 call when you died. How fitting to be there for me in the beginning, and I was there for you in the end. I miss you, Grandma. I am 911. This is but a glimpse into the world of emergency dispatch. But what is it really like to answer a call during someone's nightmare? What is the impact of the first responder answering the call? Available on Amazon or where you purchase your favorite books and ebooks. Imagine listening. Your worst day is our everyday.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
So the calls that stay with me are actually more the ones my staff took than me, because I know that they carry that with them. Even with all my years of experience, specifically with hurricanes and tornadoes and all of that, I've worked Hurricane Katrina, I worked Ivan, I worked Rita, I worked a lot of these big storms, and nothing compared to what our staff heard that day. And it wasn't just, even when you have storms, you have bad calls, and the hurricanes, you always do, and they're tragic, and you carry them with you. But this wasn't a one call or two calls out of this whole storm. It was every time they hung up the phone and picked it back up, it was something else. It was just another tragic thing. So even with all my experience, there's nothing that can prepare you for that level of devastation and trauma.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, as well as Rapid SOS. Thank you both to my sponsors. I just thank you. I appreciate you more than you know, but also to all of you who are watching, listening, supporting, and sharing, subscribe to the podcast, all of you. I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for all of you. So thank you so very much. It is November 7th, 2025, and it's already going so fast. It's just crazy. I think it's because it's the holidays, and I know you probably hear the intro and you're like, he's always saying everything's going fast. Like, it is going fast.
before we know it, or probably when this episode comes out, it's going to be Thanksgiving already. So you don't know, it's all just moving so quickly, and a lot of big things going on. I've got the ranch coming up with Joe Serio, 360 Dispatcher, be out there teaching, recording episodes of the podcast, doing some behind the scenes stuff as always. And then of course the projects that I'm working on with Rapid SOS as well, where we are just capturing these powerful stories that are coming out of the 911 profession. And then I will be back out in Texas again because there's a 911 leadership training event that goes on, which is the one that I'm going to here November 10th through the 14th. And then the first week of December is their mental health ranch. So they have a few different ones that they do, and I'll be heading out to the mental health one, which I'm really excited about. I'll be there doing some behind the scenes work, some audio video work, and chatting with a lot of the folks that are going to be there. So stay tuned for all of that. And without further ado, I am excited for my guest today. And I will say right off the bat, I really wish that I would have just gone ahead and recorded back almost a year ago now, I think, something like that. I think this coming January actually will make it about a year. But either way, I I wish I would have recorded back then, but I had a long drive, like a long drive, and I was already getting ready for it. But I'm glad that we're here today, that we're able to do this and just learn more about my guest. My guest today is Hope, and she is a 911 director with new Hanover County 911 out of North Carolina.
Hi,
Hello, my
thank you.
friend.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I am so happy that we're able to do this finally. And I will say, when I left you after we took that selfie with a championship belt and everything, I was dying. Like halfway there, I was so I'm kind of glad that we're doing this now versus then, even though I wish I would have. But yeah, halfway there, I was like, I gotta stay awake. Like this is a long drive because it was like 6 hours. And I could have stayed the next day, but I thought, no, let's just go. Then I'll have the day in between, and then I'll
Mhm.
do, the next class and such. And I will say this before we get started, and I don't know if you've been to this spot or not, but when I left the area that I was in, I asked, are there any places that I should go check out that are fairly close before I go back? And this is one of the reasons I tell people that even though some people think I'm crazy for driving 8, 9, 10 hours, sometimes 20 hours to either something that I'm teaching or at a conference or whatever it might be, it's about the experience that comes out of driving that you get a chance to do versus flying. Because of course, when you're
Mhm.
flying, you see a lot of cool stuff, right? But when you're driving, you get that opportunity to stop somewhere. And the place that they told me to go was Pretty Place Chapel. I don't know if you've never been there before,
I
but
haven't.
it is gorgeous. I think it was maybe an hour away, and it's
Mhm.
all the way up at the top of this mountain, and there's a chapel. And when I got there, it was raining and it was gloomy, but it was still gorgeous. I sat in those one of those pews and I just cried. Like that's what the feeling was
The
like
emotions
there.
came over you.
Yes, I just thought, wow, I just feel lucky and blessed to be able to have this moment. I mean, there's like 30 or 40 people there as well taking in everything, but man, it's just something about those experiences. You gotta love it. But I
I'll have
had
to check that out.
yes, definitely. And I had a great time with you and all of your folks there at your center. And we were kind of talking about this in the beginning before we started. And it was just such a good time there. And I thank you very much for the opportunity to come out and teach and just hang out with all of you and record episodes with your awesome folks there. It was a good time. But I want to find out more about you, my friend, because you've got 23 years in public safety, which is awesome. And do you come from like a family of public safety or anything, or military service, or when you started in your career, did you just kind of jump in?
I just jumped in. Actually, there was a job open for a dispatcher, and I didn't know what they did. I didn't even know they answered 911 calls at the time. I was 17
Mhm.
and I was getting ready to graduate high school, so I applied for it. It was at our local police department, and I thought it'd be a cool job working for the police department. Knew no one in public safety, did not come from public safety, knew nothing about it.
What?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, man, okay. So no, like, not even any, because
Mm-mm.
sometimes, like, TV influences, some people will see
I
shows
used to watch the
or
911 show when I was a kid, but,
like
I
Rescue
never
911 or
had
something?
I actually never had a desire to work in public safety. It's just
Yeah.
I needed a job while I went to college, and it was supposed to get me through college, and that was it. Interestingly enough, contrary to most people, I got in and realized 911 was not for me
Mhm,
and didn't think I would stay in it, but my pride kept me there. And in small towns, jobs don't come easily
mhm.
because there's not that many to choose from. And so I stuck with it for a while and really thought I wasn't going to stay in it. But at some point, obviously, in my career, my mindset changed. And here I am 23 years later.
Holy moly. Okay, hold on. Let's let's backtrack a little bit here. So you end up getting in at an early age,
Mhm,
and you're just graduating high school and everything. You're jumping into this because, as you said, it's going to get you through college, and you need a
mhm.
job. And I mean, you can't get anything more solid than 911, really, because jobs are always available, especially now. But did you even get do like a sit along or anything? Or was it
Mm-mm.
you go for the interview and, "Hey, welcome." Like, what was that beginning process then like?
I went through an interview and I don't really remember much about the interview. It was actually the first job interview I ever did as well. And I was shocked that I got the position. So I started maybe within a week or two after graduating high school. But I did not know that the police department took the 911 calls. I did not know what dispatch actually meant. I knew nothing about it. I was very naive and I was in for a rude awakening but my pride kept me there because I decided it was absolutely not for me and I just needed a job till I got through school. It was tough. It was really tough in the beginning.
Holy moly. Okay, so you walk in. So and of course, this is a while back, but if you can remember walking in that first day to start training or to start seeing everything that's there, do you like what are you seeing? Are there multiple people on the floor working at a time? Is it just one person? Is it a bunch of monitors? Like what are you seeing?
Well, I guess to explain this, I definitely remember because it is part of why I push for training and development now.
Mhm.
Um, my first day on the job, they had a prior employee had been let go, and then they realized they didn't have anybody to train me. So this is 23 years ago. I would hope this would never happen in today's time, but they hired the lady back to train me to do the job she was let go from. And so, needless to say,
Oh no.
it's one telecommunicator on at a time, dispatch center, and it was for night shift. And the first 15 minutes on the job, I was told, you answer this phone 911, you answer this one, ask the police department, and you press this button to talk on the radio, which I didn't even know what that really meant at the time. And she took a smoke break and never came back. And that was my training.
Oh, dude.
Yes. Hence the reason why I thought 911 wasn't for me. Looking back now, I was young, naive, dumb at 17, if I'm being honest. And I really didn't know that this is not the normal. This is not okay. And so I worked through it and figured it out. And yeah. So
Wow, talk about DIY. Like
yes,
that's
it was rough. It was very rough. Nobody taught me that the phonetic alphabet was not words you just made up. I didn't know there was a 10 code sheet. I use fruits for my phonetic alphabet. Um, Field units would make fun of me, which I didn't realize why they were making fun of me. I just thought apples, bananas, coconuts, why not?
Right.
So
Oh, hope. Oh my lord. Like, you were left with no hope, it seemed like.
I
You were
was.
you were
I
left to
was.
fend for yourself.
There
Wow.
was one field officer that took pity on me, and at some point, and I don't remember the time frame. It had to be fairly quickly. I really just don't remember now. But she took pity on me, and it was back when they had Southern Links, and she would tell me how to do my job before I had to do it every time until I figured it out. So
Oh my.
I was
I
thrown to the wolves.
Yes, I was just gonna say, talk about getting thrown
Yes.
to the wolves. Welcome to
Yes.
dispatch. I wow, I so my story is similar in the sense that that first night that I was there, it was about 20 minutes of my trainer, Harry, who was a very seasoned dispatcher, slightly crusty, I like to say, and 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 after I watched him with his first 911 call, he says, "You're next." And I remember saying, "What? Like, are you for real? There's no way. Like, there's gotta be some more training."
Mhm.
And that but yours is similar, but I would say way worse because the person left.
I didn't know what questions to ask. I definitely didn't know what order to ask them in. And so over time, as I started figuring it out, I started making my own training book and started documenting stuff to use as a reference. I think the worst part of it is because I worked under the capacity of a police department and we were a secondary PSAP. No one told me we dispatched for fire. And so my first structure fire, I did not handle because I didn't know I was supposed to handle it. I didn't know we dispatched for the fire department as well. And so unfortunately, this family lost their home because when she called, I immediately said, "You need to call the fire department. Hold on, let me find a number for you," not knowing that was me at the
Oh,
same time.
geez.
Mhm.
Holy moly. Well, I'm glad everyone ended up being okay. I mean, it
Yes.
sucks about the
Yes.
house, but I mean, honestly, you don't know what you don't know. And
Mhm.
without having somebody there, I mean, you said what, you're 17, going on 18 and everything.
Mhm.
And it's like, I'm here running the world, in a sense.
Mhm.
Like that's your world. That's your world that you're in,
Yes.
and you're running it. And someone was just like, I'll be back. I'm gonna go have a smoke. And just
Mhm.
that was a long smoke.
Yes.
Like it
Yes.
wow.
It was rough in the beginning. I am a very type A personality, especially back then. I've learned to tone it down a little bit now that I'm in the position I'm in. But I was definitely a type A personality, so nobody was going to know that they were getting to me. So I held it all in, then I'd go home and cry at night.
Oh, man.
Yes.
I know a lot of folks that have said something similar. It was like, I waited. I waited
Yes, I
until I
waited.
was gone.
They were
Because
not
yeah.
going to know they got to me.
Right, exactly, especially in that type of environment where,
Mhm.
we were kinda talking about this the other day, during a live broadcast about, culture and such that, that's how some of it was for a lot of us in the beginning. It's like you just suck it up and you go to the next one. You
Yes.
don't let people know that it's getting to you or that the
There's
emotions are high or anything, right? And whoo, so how long did you stay at that first agency then?
close to 4 years.
Mhm. I love the
Close
fact
to
that
4
you were
years.
already creating your own reference guides and everything. Did
Mhm.
you end up leaving those there or did you bring
I
them with you?
did. I did, and, the people that were hired after me, it got a little more structured each time somebody came along. It wasn't flawless by any means, but, this is in the beginning before we even knew or before I even knew there were national standards and APCO and NENA existed, and it was just figuring it out on your own and what makes sense and how do you make it easier for the next person so they don't go through what you went through.
So I can in kind of a jokingly way, I can imagine the beginning of your reference book is like Dear reference book. Today today I started and nobody told me anything. This is where
Yes.
we begin.
Yes.
Oh, man. I do love that, though. I love that you were already thinking ahead and, not just for yourself, but for anybody else who is gonna be coming in, like, early on, especially at that
Mhm.
age to think to be that much of a forward thinker is phenomenal because you're already thinking about the training piece and, how I mean, I can only imagine that where you're at today, you kind of think back on some of those times too, and you were kind of training yourself already all the way up for, anything that were to come up. So you end up leaving, um, well, actually, let me ask you this first,
Okay.
because there are a couple different spots that you were at right
Mhm.
before you are at New Hanover. So for that first one, do you remember any of those earlier calls other than like the fire or anything like that?
I don't remember the very first one. I do remember because I had started in June,
Mhm.
and I remember the units coming in one day and they're talking about get ready for the 4th of July. You're scheduled on the 4th. And I said, okay, besides it being busy, what's the big deal about the 4th? And they told me we always have a shooting on the 4th. And it's small town, so they don't get shootings every day or even every week or
Yeah.
even every year for that matter. And so I just kind of blew them off. I was like, oh, they're trying to scare me kind of thing. So I started in June, 4th of July, I'm working, and I get my first shooting call, and I am by myself, and the guy calls in, but he hasn't done the shooting yet. He had learned that his wife and his best friend were having an affair, and he's telling me he's about to shoot and kill them. And so I'm trying to tell him, I don't need you to do that. And keep in mind, I have no training. So I'm doing the
Right.
best I can. I'm getting units en route. I got his location. I know where he's at. He's at our old outlet mall. I'm trying to get units behind the old outlet mall. And the next thing I know is I hear 3 shots. So he shot his wife, his best friend, who were behind the old outlet mall where we were at. And then he shot and killed himself. What made this call tragically memorable wasn't the fact that it was even the shooting. And I do remember my adrenaline going up, and I remember when everything settled, my hands were shaking, and I wasn't surprisingly I was able to handle the call well. I didn't lose sleep at night, but I did think about it periodically. But what made it so impactful, I'm trying not to cry. Good Lord, I haven't cried over this one in a long time.
No, please take
Um,
your time.
sorry. Was I had just graduated with their daughter.
Hmm.
So one of my classmates, because we're in a small police department, just a month prior, her and her younger brother came in asking me, hey, what's going on with my mom and dad? And so a month of starting into dispatch, I'm also telling my friend that your dad just murdered your mother and killed himself. So that was the hard part. Is I know being in a bigger center now, or at least a mid-sized center, depending on where you're at, smaller centers, they have to do a lot. Their telecommunicators aren't just telecommunicators. They do a lot. So
Mhm.
yeah, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna pull it together now.
No, you're good.
So
You are
that was
completely
one of
good.
my that was my first call that I actually really remember. Um,
Wow. And to be the age that you were, and to
mhm,
also have that moment. So, for those who are watching and listening who may not understand this as Hope is describing this, maybe I can add a little bit to it as well. And so, where I had started this small one-seater police department, people come in and you're
mhm.
face to face with these people as they come in and they're making complaints. And what I mean by making complaints, I don't mean that they're just complaining and being a pain. That's not what that means. That when we take a phone call, it's a complaint. It's something that we put in. So that's what I mean. It's there people come in face to face rather than on the phone to make their complaint, whatever it might be. So, you're there face to face with these people, and we're used to taking calls. But if you're in a one-seater or something like that where you're public facing, that makes it even much harder. So for you, Hope, you've got them that come in, you
Mhm.
know them, you just go to school with them, you're friends and everything, and it makes it that much more personal. And
Mhm.
sometimes with some of those calls when people come in, or when you're on the phone with somebody and you have to call to say, we need you to go to whatever house, you can't always tell them what it is that's going
Mhm.
on, because if they're driving, you got to think about the liability there as well. Like if I tell them what exactly is going on and they go hauling ass to the house to meet with whatever family member, they might cause an accident or be in an accident and they die or something. That's a huge liability. And so we have to say, something to the effect of, I've just been advised, I've just been told to give you a call and to go out there. There's some, issue that's going on, something, but just have them
Mhm.
go out there. And however they get out there, they get out there. But if you tell them, then it's like you could potentially cause something else just from that. So, that makes it just that much more personal, a lot deeper. So I can't just hearing you talk about it, like, I can feel you. I can feel the emotion and everything coming through, because that had to have been a hard moment. It's
It
a public.
definitely was. It wasn't even with training, nothing could have prepared me for that.
Mhm.
And not to mention, while we had that, we had a multiple vehicle accident with rollovers and entrapment that was going on at the same time as all of that. Because, it's never just one emergency at a time.
Right, yeah, and again, for those watching and listening who are not in the profession, that are in the general public, 911 doesn't stop. It
Mhm.
it continues. Everything is going, and everything is going. I remember having to tell a few callers, completely be honest with them and say, "Your emergency isn't the only emergency going on right now, ma'am or sir," or whichever, and not in a jerky way, just telling them, being real with them to say, "There's another call that's coming in, which is why I have to put you on hold."
Mhm.
And there's only so many of us to be able to take these calls. So just hang tight and I will be right back with you. It's not that we don't want to talk about, to you, or that your emergency is lesser than anyone else's. It's just that 911 does not stop.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
most of the time people understand, you know, other times people are like, and they go off. I'm like, I'm sorry, I will be right back with you. So, oh my Lord, I can't even imagine going through something like that. Now, I will ask as well, because things are a lot different now than they were back then when you first started, but was there any type of debriefing? Was there any other,
No.
right? Because
No, not at
there was no
all.
resources, right, for mental health and wellness, and
Mhm.
people probably weren't really talking either.
No. Yes.
Because 23 years ago, I mean, I think you started probably around the same time that I started. So, um, yeah, there wasn't anything. It was just like, all right, go to the next one.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, geez. So you end up going through all of that. And again, thank you so much for sharing that story as well. It's not one that I would have ever expected, to be something that you went through or experienced, especially at that age. I just can't even imagine. But again, I thank you for sharing that, and the fact that you are still in public safety all of these years later, because there's a lot of folks who might have taken something like that and said, just thrown up their hands and been like, yeah, this is not it. But as you said, your pride is what got you to stay. But also, I mean, kind of thinking back, can you pinpoint, because you end up going to another center, and obviously, as we've been saying a few times already, you've been in public safety for 23 years. So is there a moment, an incident, or I don't know, anything that you can maybe pinpoint what, I guess, solidified that you were in the right spot, that you were in the place that you were meant to be, as in being in public safety?
It's actually probably at the second center I was at was in Troy, Alabama.
Mhm.
And going from my first center to the second one, the culture was a lot different. Um, it's the people you're around, the people who build you up, and it really is a team effort. And I actually had a I'm trying to think about how to explain this. Can I go back a little bit and tell you how
Mhm.
I ended up at the second center?
Of course. Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
that might make more sense then.
Yeah,
Okay,
for
so
sure.
when I graduated and got my associate's degree, I quit 911. I had no plans of ever going back. I ended up moving to Troy to go to Troy University,
Mhm.
and I was in athletic training. And I was in class one day, and they had brought the canines in to come and discuss substance abuse in athletes and signs to recognize. And while they were in there, they would ask questions periodically, and based on how I answered them, they figured out at some point I've worked in public safety in some capacity. So after the class was over, they stopped by. One of the officers stopped and talked to me and said, "You have some experience in public safety. Where at?" So I told him I had dispatched for close to 4 years prior, and he said, "We're hiring." And I told him I'm not interested. Like, I don't want anything to do with it at all. And this is, keep in mind, this is still years and years ago. It would never fly today. But the hiring sergeant at Troy Police Department was friends with the department head of the athletic training department at Troy. And they tracked down to figure out which student I was. And I had an application hand delivered to me to my apartment by an officer.
What?
Yes, yes. So I would have never had that not happen, I probably would not be in 911 today. And he brought this application to me, like paper applications back then, and I was kind of surprised and shocked and a little bit flattered. I was like, okay, so um I still didn't really want to work in 911, but I was new to the area. I was like, okay, I could probably do some part-time work. And if I really don't like it, I can put in my notice and it's no big deal. So I put in my application. And there's nothing like interviewing for a job you don't necessarily want or need, because you can say whatever you want to at that point.
Right.
Keep in mind, I have a type A personality. So
Yeah.
I did my in-person interview, and it went on for 2 hours because we laughed. We talked about pranks and jokes and all the stuff we did at my prior center. So it wasn't all bad by any means. And so we had such a good time. That was the best interview I've ever had, was just getting to be real, be me, not being nervous for an interview just because I don't even know that I really want this job. So I ended up getting the job, and I started, and the environment was so different. It really was the second family that you hear public safety talk about. And that's what changed. And so after that, I decided athletic training wasn't for me. So I changed my degree every single semester. And somebody in the police department one day told me, you need to figure out what you love, what you already know, and you just need to figure out how to make a career out of it. And so that's what I did. It
Wow.
just took going to the second center, and it was the people. It was the people, and part of it is like we take a lot of bad calls, and the job itself, I love the adrenaline rush, the highs and lows. And while I don't want anything bad to happen in any of the communities I've ever lived in, if it was, I wanted to be the one to take the call,
Mhm.
because I knew, I honestly, like, that's my strong suit. Like, I know what to ask, when to ask. I know what the units in the field are going to ask for, what they're going to want, need. My partners around us on our team, we never had to ask somebody to make a call for us. Like we listened out for each other. So we always knew what the other person needed and just did it for them. And it was just really that environment and figuring out how do you make a career out of this, and how do you bring this to other places that don't have an environment like this. It's great.
Wow.
And, something I do tell our staff sometimes, like when we do take tragic calls, is obviously it's not always the good calls, but in the moment, even when you have those losses, it's the impact you made in that moment. Were you compassionate and caring, because they're going to carry that with them for a lifetime. And you're making whatever the situation is, even if you don't always have the saves, you give them their best chance of survival, or you give them their best chance for it not being as bad as it could have been, all depending on how well you do your job. And so sometimes the impacts aren't the outcomes we want, but we do make an impact either way.
I love that. You it's so first off, the folks in Alabama, I've been out in Alabama several times, and that Southern hospitality, I want to stay, it's it's
I love
it's so
Alabama.
nice. Yeah, it's so nice around there and everything.
Mhm.
And I love that, you come into it, you're embraced, and it's like it's a different mentality, almost from when you first started. And I wonder if, when you were, did you tell them, like, do you remember, in the interview, if you kind of told them how you started out, how it was in the beginning? And the only reason I say is because I can just imagine them in the back of their minds going, holy moly, they left her by herself on that first day.
I don't remember. I do remember some of the pranks I talked about,
Yeah.
or some of the parts working in, like you had said earlier, we're forward facing, the public sees you.
Yeah.
Um, I I don't remember telling specifically about the training. I imagine I probably did, because I do know I was not nervous and did not hold back. Um, there's a lot of fun memories there too. I don't know if I should share this or not, but I'm going to anyway, I guess.
Okay.
And I know my assistant director, she tells me all the time, hope I might not, I want to share that if I was you. So here we go. It's like, um, I was in dispatch one day and everything pops off, like things are going nuts. We only have 3 officers on duty. And so we have domestic and shots being fired in our project. So they're on the way, but they had just arrested somebody and he's sitting right in front of me. The only thing that's in between us is this plexiglass and this door. And they just left him. And keep in mind, you were telecommunicator or dispatcher is what we were called then. And I'm sitting there and I was like, what am I supposed to do with him? Like, what is he supposed to do? And I'm trying to figure this out, but I'm working the radio and I'm watching him and I see him looking around and I could tell his mind's racing. Like, I know he's about to do something. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Well, suddenly he takes off running out the front door. And as a telecommunicator who's never been trained, I didn't know if it was my job to do anything or not. So I grabbed the WT, the walkie-talkie, and yelled, I got one running. And I took off and chased after him. And and I actually tackled him in the parking lot. And this man was twice as, I was a tiny thing when I first started working. But I remember tackling him because he was not expecting that in the parking lot, and told him to get his ass back inside. And there we had Class A uniforms, and our badges actually said patrolman, even though we were in dispatch.
Oh,
And so I was like, I don't know that he ever knew. I mean, he should have, but
yeah,
I don't know. It was just wild. So
that is
I
amazing.
do remember telling them some of our crazy stories from before in that interview. Needless to say, why it lasted 2 hours.
Oh man,
I can
that
hear
is
Karen now listening to this podcast and be like, Hope, Should not have shared that.
I know, right?
It'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. No, we had, man, those I'll throw one out there as well. It was April Fool's Day, and
Mhm.
one of our sergeants called up because he knew it was my team that was working and that I would do it because I like to have fun while we were working. And so he calls me up and he goes, "Hey, it's April Fool's Day today." And I said, "Yeah, it is." I said, "What do you want me to do?" And he goes, "I knew it." He goes, "Okay, um, I don't know what to do." He goes, "But somehow I want you to play a prank on my crew, on my team." And I said, "Okay." I said, "I don't know what to do." And he goes, "I believe in you. I know you can figure it out." And I said, "All right, cool." So I'm trying to think of something, and the position that I was sitting, it was backup phones and radios. So I wasn't taking the main traffic or anything. I was mostly running plates and warrants and such. And then I got a bright idea because at the time, their MCTs, their laptops that they receive all their information on, they kept getting new updates and they were getting so annoyed by it. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to use that. So nobody was on anything. There was nothing going on at that time. So I key up on the radio and I said, Allegan Central to all stations and units. We have a new update coming down to your MCTs, but what we need for you is to pull off to the side of the road. It'll take between 10 to 15 seconds for it to download. You have to be stationary. So please do so, and I will let you know once it has been complete. And people are saying 10-4, but immediately my screen is like asteroids, like the Atari game. It's like pop, 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 pop. It's just popping up and everything. And they're saying, "Is this real? Is this real?" I'm like, I'm not going to say nothing. So I waited for the time and then I go back on and I say, Allegan Central to all stations and units, the download has been completed. You may resume your normal traffic and what you are doing. By the way, from Victor One and I, happy April Fool's Day. And
I love it.
and people keyed up and they're like, ha ha ha. And other people were sending me messages saying, "You're an asshole." And I was like, sorry.
Yeah.
So then a few hours later, that sergeant comes in and he was laughing, but then he also says, "Thanks a lot, asshole, for throwing me under the bus with you and calling me out over the radio." And I said, "Bro, I love you, but I wasn't going to go down by myself."
Not by yourself. I love
Yes.
it.
I was like, I had authorization. So yeah, no, that was good. I didn't get to chase anyone down and tackle them though. That's
I
pretty
don't recommend
amazing.
it.
Yeah,
I do not recommend it. I was like in the position I'm in now, I'm just thinking back to the liability, all the risks, all the things that could have went wrong.
yeah, but it ended up being fine.
It's a good story to tell.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I love it. So you end up, so those are the first two spots, right? And then
Mhm,
you end up in a couple others, and
mhm.
then you end up making your way over to New Hanover County in North Carolina. But before we moved to this spot, it sounds like you were all over the country.
Pretty much.
Or you were kind of
Yes.
learning from like different regions of the country and
Mhm.
everything. And I can just imagine how much that built your knowledge, your experience, and different scenarios going on to where you're at today.
It was wild. It really is because feeling like you're top of your game and you know everything about 911 and then you get thrown into, well, I wasn't really thrown in, I put myself there. You go to these different centers and being in Alabama, I know how to work hurricanes. I was there for the 2011 tornado outbreak, worked it. We've worked flooding and you have brush fires, those type of things, to going out west. I remember going to Oregon and I was excited. I was like, I don't have to deal with hurricanes anymore. It was exciting to put that behind me. And my first year there, we had a wildland fire. And I remember my house on the backside of the mountain. You could see this glow coming from behind it. And I had a Honda Civic at the time, and I loaded it up with all my stuff. That was like, I was ready to go. If they said we were evacuating, I was already ready. And I remember going to the center, and one of the TCs, she said, "What is all that crap in your car?" I said, "In case I have to evacuate." And she's like, the mountain's limestone. It's not coming over it. And it's things I wouldn't have known being
Oh.
from Alabama. And I had worked in Georgia before I moved out west there.
Mhm.
And my first year there was 32,000 acres burning in the county we were in. And my staff looked at me like I was crazy because I ended up telling them, I know 911, I know parts of 911. I didn't realize what I didn't know until I went out west and was exposed to it fairly quickly. But I remember telling my team, like, if there's something I'm supposed to be doing that I'm not, I'm just going to be humble and tell you, I need you to tell me what is
Yeah.
it I'm missing. And they laughed at me and they're like, oh, this is a small fire. The one we had last year was 100,000 acres. And my mouth's just wide open trying to figure out, like, okay. The year prior, they had paint melting off of fire trucks and stuff of that nature. Going there, I experienced my first avalanche. Where we had a fatality in it. We also had a couple of more avalanches that covered the freeway. So we were between Boise and Portland. And so it's pretty busy through that area. Even though we're a small community, we do get a lot of the other traffic, and suddenly we have an avalanche that blocks the freeway. So getting those type of calls and being from Alabama and not being exposed to snow, except for maybe once or twice in my life, and, where everything shuts down when when you you don't have real snow. You learn that when you go out west too. And then from there, I went to Idaho and learned about, I can't even think of the name of it, different types of dirt storms because they're high desert and not be able to see through it, and that causing accidents. And they also had wildland fires, to coming back to the East Coast where I belong. I was like, I know how to handle hurricanes and tornadoes. The wildland fires, I managed, and I had a great team at both centers. So anywhere I've worked, I've been very fortunate to have worked with the people I've worked with. So
I feel like so we joke sometimes about having a bingo card in dispatch to mark
Mhm,
off, right? All these different
mhm.
things. I feel like yours is like a special edition bingo
Yes,
card. 'Cause
yes,
holy
yes.
moly, like you have been thrown into a lot of different situations. I mean, you've got this huge fire that they end up telling you, "Hey, that's nothing. 30 some thousand acres is nothing compared to
I
the 110,000 we
I
had."
know. It's, they were great. That's still my favorite place I've ever been, is in Eastern Oregon.
Uh-huh.
Love it, love it, love it.
A lot of bear
But
calls or anything?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said a lot of bear calls at all?
I think the locals are used to it, so
Oh,
I
okay. There's
wouldn't
just like,
necessarily say that we
it's
got
just
calls on
Yogi
it.
and Boo Boo.
I mean, if anybody was to call it in, it'd probably be me or my family.
From
You know? Can I tell you how I ended up on the West Coast?
Oh, of course. Yes,
Um,
please.
so I met my husband and had my daughter in Georgia, and I was doing quality assurance at that point in Augusta, and I was looking for a higher level position, and I wanted to get away from where we were at.
Mhm.
I had just had some pretty bad calls. It wasn't even the ones that I handled. It was just some that hit back to back with some children the same age as my daughter, who was one. And I was kind of in this position where I'm doing quality assurance. I'm not quite ready to give up dispatching yet either. So I have a desk on the floor.
Mhm.
I do not have an office. And when they would take their lunch breaks, they did get lunch breaks in Augusta. For y'all that don't know, a lot of centers do not do that.
That's true, yeah.
But we had these on calls. So a lot of people have to, on their days off, would have to come in to help cover lunches. Well, instead of them having to call out on call, I would cover whose ever channel I needed to during the lunches. And then that also let me still have my hands in the mix, but not quite giving it up yet, doing quality assurance. And I'm doing some applications, and while things are slow, because they put me on a slower channel. And of course, a vehicle pursuit starts on the channel I'm on that's supposed to be slow. And I had started this application, or I had looked at it. I didn't really fully go through it. So I just hit submit, went on about working this chase. Little did I know, the place that I applied for, I thought was Florida. And I ended up getting this interview. They called me and they said, hey, your application went complete. We do require a cover letter and a resume. Can you go ahead and submit that? So I went ahead and emailed it to the lady. Did not think anything of it. And so I get interviewed for my first director position. And this is pre-COVID and all of that. It was my first WebEx anything video call ever. And I remember thinking that they talk funny, like something's off. And I also remember, why do they have so many layers on? Like, that just looks like a lot of clothing. And I remember thinking those two things. And it has not hit me that they are not in Florida. Like, I have no idea that I have just interviewed for a job that's not in Florida at this point, but things are starting to come together. But backstory, prior to this, my husband now, at the time, he is my child's father. We are not married, but I have two beautiful bonus kids that we all lived in the same community. And the two things we agreed to was we would stay in the Southeast, so we're close to them. And the second one was no snow, because my husband and I both hate the snow. And so I do this interview, and I'm supposed to be called back a week later. They call me back an hour later to offer it. And that's when I realized it's in Oregon. And so I call Ryan and I tell him, so I was offered the job. He said, okay, go ahead and accept it. I said, no, we need to talk. And so we kind of went back and forth. And so I waited till he got home, and I said, so the job's not in Florida. It's in Baker County, Oregon. And the look on his face, I could still see it today. And his immediate response was, why in the hell would you apply for something in Oregon? And so neither one of us know anything about Oregon. I have never been anything west of Texas. I don't know anything about it. And so we're both on our phones Googling Baker County, Oregon, and what pops up? A mountain with snow.
Oh,
and he
geez.
looks at me and he says, they have snow there. I was like, I do now. And my bonus kid's mom, actually, because I had asked him if I could have a few days, because that's a big move, obviously. And I was kind of in shock of what I've gone through this whole process. And I got the wrong state. Like, I'm not even close. I would have never even applied
across
for
the
it,
entire country.
Yes. So my bonus kid's mom actually talked to us the day I was supposed to give them an answer, and said she was moving to Pennsylvania. And I took it kind of as a sign. And it's like, okay, well, we're not going to be all right here together anyway. So we took a leap of faith and moved out west in a blizzard, and having never driven in snow before with the 14-month-old, and loved it.
Talk about taking a leap of faith.
Yes. Now, don't get me wrong. After driving there for 4 days in a blizzard, having never driven in snow before, well, practically never driven in snow before, I got there and I cried, because driving through Wyoming in a blizzard, and that's rough to get there.
It's like your version of Little House on the Prairie. Like,
it was great though. Like, that's still my favorite place I've ever been. It really is. I love it.
That is amazing. So you end up you go there, you end up in Idaho, and then you end up back on the East Coast, and you are in North Carolina.
Yes,
you
I love
are
it here.
New Hanover. And
Yes.
so did you come into New Hanover as the director, or did you come in and
Yes.
work up? So
I
you came in as
the director. My position was actually under emergency management. So the emergency management director oversaw his department as well as 911. But in 2018, when Hurricane Florence hit, they lost the 911 center. during the storm.
Mhm.
And I cannot commend them enough, especially the director at the time. He was torn between, figuring out how to bring a 911 center back up, but also you have significant flooding. You have people on top of cars. You have all this tragedy around you related on the emergency management side as well. And I can't imagine being in his shoes and having to deal with those challenges and making the best decisions he could with the information and the resources he had at that time. So from that, after they, I guess, essentially did some type of action and put some plans in place, my position came about. And when we were looking to move back to the East Coast, it was perfect. It really was the perfect position to stay in 911. Obviously, North Carolina is beautiful anyway. I'm close to my bonus kids because they also moved back south. And as well as my experience with hurricanes, because not only had I worked in 911, I did 13 years of disaster services as well, specifically for hurricanes and tornadoes in the Southeast. So it really was the perfect fit.
Wow. So it it seems like it seems like you were kind of, in a way, had been training
Mhm,
all of this experience, all of this stuff going on, and it brings us to, which is a kind of a good segue into this, just over a year ago now, to Hurricane Helene
mhm.
and everything that happened with that. It was what, September 24th, something like that is when it,
September
I think,
27th.
20, which one? What,
Oh, I was, oh,
27th?
now I'm second guessing it.
Oh, I don't know. I
I'm
I
second
was I was
guessing it
looking
now.
at it right here. It
Mhm,
maybe it formed in the on the
mhm.
24th or something, but when it,
Maybe, and then when we got hit hard.
yeah. Yeah, so it formed around that time, and it looks like it started hitting and making landfall on the 26th, 27th, and going on, for everything that it did. Now, with having all that experience, I guess let's go through this because I was going to ask you about, a call that has stuck with you, but I kind of feel, and if you want to share, if you have one for that specific piece, we can go ahead and share that now. But I was going to leave it as the one that you talked about way in the beginning with the parents and your friend and
Mhm.
all of that. So it's up to you if you have a call, that kind of sticks with you, versus the one that you had shared already, because that obviously sticks with you and such. Or we can jump right into Hurricane Helene. So I will leave that to you.
We can go into Helene if you'd
Okay.
like. Mhm,
So with all of that experience and everything, and this is kind of what I want people to understand as well, is having that experience that you have, knowing what is coming, at least in the sense of just the type of chaos that there's going to be, you as the director and seeing all of this going on, emergency management probably reaching out to you, the 911 state board reaching out, whatever it might be, but also talking to your folks there all under the headset, within the trenches of 911. How are you preparing for this? What are some of the things that you're saying to people, but also how are you even feeling during this time? Because I can't even imagine watching all of this starting to unfold and thinking, okay, we've got so much stuff that we got to prepare for. Like I can't even wrap my mind around that.
Well, actually, this one was interesting,
Hmm.
in the sense that we weren't going to have a direct hit for the hurricane. We are a coastal community, and we normally would be making preparations. And in a typical hurricane that we're preparing for, we're probably going to activate. We're going to have people sleeping at the center. We convert some of our training room and our lounge into bunk rooms and bring cots in, and we start setting up teams. We coordinate with our backup centers, which is in Raleigh, and decide whether or not we're sending a team there. But this one was different because we're supposed to have minimum impacts.
Hmm.
And it's actually Buncombe County, which is where Asheville is,
Hmm.
that is preparing for the storm. And that being said, we are their primary backup center. And that had been formed maybe a year prior, somewhere between a year to 18 months prior. And interestingly enough, so Asheville's in the mountains, they're nowhere near the coast. And they had a winter storm. And so in case they had any outages, we would be their backup, is why we set that up. And then we thought it would be good for them to reciprocate. So when we have a hurricane, we could use somebody on the western part of the state to help cover for us, to try to build out those plans. So in preparation for it, we had calls with the state 911 board, our regional reps, as well as their 911 director at the time. And we were making plans. And I remember being on the call saying, okay, so if you start getting a few calls an hour, we're going to go on and add Fayetteville on, as in Fayetteville 911 as another backup center. And then we would kind of round robin it almost, where we call it load balancing, where Buncombe's going to take the calls, and any overflow, we'll get the first call, Fayetteville get the second call. So we have staff in, it's sunshiny days, this beautiful day here in Wilmington. And so getting your mindset ready for what the calls, that they had to take, you really can't prepare yourself for that. And we also had no idea, we had no expectation that it was going to be what it was. So with us on the coast, if skies are gray, storms coming in, we've had days to prepare for it. We have time to make sure all our stuff's in place. And in this situation, our staff came to work and it's a pretty day. You're just expecting your normal calls, your car accidents, maybe some domestics, whatever the case is. And that morning, we didn't just get a few calls. We ended up with over 2,000 calls that day. And to kind of put it into perspective, our 9 o'clock hour was the peak hour from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. When you look back on the average number of calls that our center takes in that time of year, the days prior to that was 67 calls between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. is what their average was. They took 886 in 1 hour. So it was all hands on deck. Everybody was doing whatever they could do, but to prepare for it we didn't have days to anticipate this. We're thinking we're just going to catch some overflow calls. So almost immediately, the state brought Fayetteville on as we had planned, but between all three centers, we couldn't handle the call load. And so shortly after that, they brought on Raleigh-Wake. Raleigh-Wake became over inundated, and they kept bringing on center after center after center to try to cover all these calls we're getting. And at the same time, as a director, I'm thinking, I know what my staff's taking. So I know Fayetteville's struggling. I know Raleigh's struggling. Clearly Buncombe's struggling. But the calls were pretty rough for our staff, for sure. And even though I wasn't taking the calls, it's still, you carry the weight that your staff takes. You carry that weight with you. And it's not even as much the calls that bother you, or at least for me, and my role is worrying about your team and your staff and how they're doing. I remember that day, I grabbed a portable radio. So there's so many calls going to Buncombe. I know that they can't clearly see these calls, and some of them are trees down or the area's flooded and I can't get out. But you have other people who their houses are floating away. Somebody's caught in the river. You have children who are drowning. You have kids that are in treetops by themselves with no parents around them. And you think, like, how's your team doing? And we did have unrelated to this, obviously, a few years ago, we did have one of our team members commit suicide. And so you think it's not just like you worry, what is your staff's breaking point? And you don't know what they're really dealing with. And so I did bring Kleenexes. I thought I was going to be able to get through it. I'm sorry.
No. You don't have to be sorry at all. Please take your time.
But
I can't even.
Some of the calls that, even though like I have calls that I remember, these are harder on me and I didn't even take them. And it's because you genuinely care about your teams and you want them to be okay. And at the same time, I know that the directors from Fayetteville and Raleigh and Buncombe are probably feeling the same, worried about their teams and doing whatever they can. I remember grabbing a radio to just make sure Buncombe knows that we're getting these calls. And it's not just the calls, it's the ones that are imminent threats or imminent danger, like they're not going to survive if somebody doesn't get to them. And I remember the response I got back at some point was, nobody's going. We have nobody to send. We have nobody that can get to them. And so you're taking these calls. And one of the struggles I had was, it kind of goes back to, I think, one of the reasons why you started this podcast, the 911 Saves Act. I know I've been in several different centers, and I know not everybody believes telecommunicators are first responders because they're not in the field. And frankly, that's bullshit. Because you go back to Hurricane Helene is the perfect example. They do it every day. But if you go back to every day, if our telecommunicators do not get people to start CPR, they have no chance of survival if they're not breathing. And when responders get on scene, they do take over those calls and they may or may not have a save. But if they don't start it from the time they get that call, your chance of survival lessens every second. But you take Hurricane Helene. I remember our staff talking to people who the flood waters kept rising, and people have somehow gotten in the attic before they called 911. The flood waters are not stopping. They continue to rise. And so our staff is doing everything they can to figure out a way to get them out of these attics because they have nowhere to go. You have families with children. You hear the children in the background. I remember a 13-year-old boy calling. They had just had a landslide happen at their house, and their parents went outside to go look to see what happened because if I'm not mistaken, I believe their vehicle had gotten in the landslide. And, it's human nature to be curious and to go outside. And I'm not making any assumptions. I'm just saying. But the parents went outside and they never came back. And so this 13-year-old boy rode out the storm by himself. We don't know if he made it, didn't make it. We do know that nobody could get to him. We also know that there were so many calls coming in that they couldn't stay on the line with them either. We had calls for children who had climbed trees. And it's not just the calls. You can hear the stuff happening in the background. You can hear trees snapping all around them. I know a lot of people saw the videos of the houses going down the river, and you see stuff falling. Just imagine being on a call and these kids, and there's more than one, they've climbed a tree because the floodwaters are rising. There is no land for them to stand on, and the trees around them are just snapping. And then suddenly you lose contact with them and you don't know if they made it or didn't make it. So the calls that stay with me are actually more the ones my staff took than me because I know that they carry that with them. even with all my years of experience, specifically with hurricanes and tornadoes and all of that, I've worked Hurricane Katrina, I worked Ivan, I worked Rita, I worked a lot of these big storms, and nothing compared to what our staff heard that day. And it wasn't just you have even when you have storms, you have bad calls, and the hurricanes you always do, and they're tragic, and you carry them with you. But this wasn't a one call or two calls out of this whole storm. It was every time they hung up the phone and picked it back up, it was something else. It was just another tragic thing. So even with all my experience, there's nothing that can prepare you for that level of devastation and trauma. And kind of going back to the 911 Saves Act, when they say that telecommunicators don't save lives, that's not true. Telecommunicators across the state, I know there was a lot of centers backing up other centers as well. I know that almost our entire state was covering 911 calls. I know it wasn't all of them, but the majority of them were. And they truly gave our North Carolina community their best chance for survival. And in a lot of cases, it was their only chance, because in that situation, no one was coming. And so I think that's a whole other level. It's, even with hurricanes here, there are times that we pull responders from the field, and we do know that, or we don't, their agencies make the decision they can't go out anymore because it's not safe, or the apparatuses won't withstand the winds. But in this case, then at some point they're going to go out as soon as the storm comes or the eye comes through. They're going to try to prioritize some calls and send some people in that little bit of time you have. And in this case, it was just nonstop, and you knew people weren't coming. And so our telecommunicators prayed with people. They heard their last words. They gave them hope. They gave them compassion in their last moments. And I cannot begin to thank them enough for what they've done.
Thank you.
I'm crying too much on this podcast. I'm sorry.
No. You don't have to be sorry at all. I love that. First off, thank you so much for sharing all of this, and in detail, and because these are things that people need to know. People don't understand what it is like, especially for something like this, for Hurricane Helene or any hurricane that comes in that has this type of devastation, tragedy, and impact that is going on. So no, please, emotion is good. It's good to get it out. I mean, it's one of the things that we talk about all the time. So please, no, don't hold back. It is okay.
Okay.
And just to hear the types of things that your folks were hearing and what they were going through, call to call, surrounding agencies. I can only imagine the amount of calls that are flooding in all over the place and how that's working as well. But also, like you said, and I've spoken to others. I spoke to someone who was out of Buncombe as well, and just like you and others, who have had to go through something like this. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around that. Our job, right, is to send out help and to get help out there, but to have to tell someone that no one is coming out, to have to tell someone that you just need to get to higher ground, that alone, just saying it out loud here right now is odd to say, but to have to be there and actually say it to someone while something like this is going on, I can't imagine how much your heart just breaks, sinks, goes into your throat, like all of it, right? And you've got all of these calls that are continuing to come in. And although you mentioned that with all of your experience and everything else, it didn't or couldn't have prepared you or anything. I think some of the silver lining here a little bit, and this is just my opinion, I feel like you being there with your folks, you were able to give a level of response and support to all of them that myself or anyone else as a director who doesn't have any experience like that, you were the right person with all of that experience. Like, I mean, you've worked through these things. And again, like you said, it doesn't prepare you for something like this or the amount of devastation and the level of what this was. But that silver lining was that you at least had that type of support, that deep experience that you were able to support your people in a way that others would not have been able to do. And that
Mhm.
is something to hold on to as well. How long did all of this last? I mean, did it stay at that rate for a day or 2, or was that just that first
No.
day, or
It
how did
was
that
that first day.
Mhm.
Actually, our calls dropped significantly, and it was because they had cellular outages. And so when the cell phones and the fiber and all of that got cut, in the
Uh,
western part of the state, when they lost cell phone towers, they nobody could call. Um, so it lasted for several hours, but then when it dropped. And it wasn't one provider, it was all of them at that point. Um,
that makes it
and
just a little bit more scary.
it definitely was. It absolutely was. Um it was remarkable kind of seeing what was being done to bring systems back up shortly afterwards that a lot of people may not know or may not have seen. They one provider, I can't remember which one, when they're trying to run fiber somewhere, they hired professional kayakers to run it across the river.
Oh,
Because I
wow.
know you've all seen images where the river actually moved. It was not in the same place it was.
Mhm.
And I don't definitively know what areas that was in. I just know it was in Western North Carolina. I know a lot of efforts were being made to bring solutions back up. Starlinks were being deployed to different areas to allow people to connect to it. There was a lot that was happening on the technology side, but when you talk about infrastructure, we're highly technical in this day and age, and that definitely impacted our ability to respond or people's ability to call. So when we had a lot and then suddenly it went back to it should have went back to our normal operations, but the weight was heavy. We did when our staff, some of our admin team knew that they were what they had. We had people that we didn't care whether they came to our main center, backup center. If you're available, just come to whichever center's closest and just put on a headset, start taking calls.
Mhm.
So we did have some people who were able to come in as soon as they realized what we were getting. And I don't think anybody truly realized what we had until they were here and dealing with it.
How long after do you feel like you and your team finally like, was there a moment where you could finally take a breath? Or, I can imagine coming out of the center, stepping outside and just looking at the sky and just thinking, "We just went through all of that." Like, how was that
It's
even that those moments where you're finally kinda coming down?
it was, I can't even say, like, it wasn't even days or weeks, it was months later. I couldn't even tell you a time frame. Um, and it's almost there's some people that wanna talk about it, and there's some that's like, "I don't wanna talk about it because I don't wanna cry, I don't wanna feel it." So it depends on the person
Yeah.
and how they respond to it, but it was definitely different. We did bring in counselors that were available on site, but we also had debriefings and the I won't share obviously for I won't share the debriefing, but
Mhm.
one of the most impactful things was at the end of it, they said, "Do you have a moment? I need to get on a call." And it was Buncombe County telecommunicators thanking our staff for taking their calls. And I remember the look on my staff's face, like, "Are you kidding me? This is your community. Why are you thanking us?" Like, but they recognized that I think we all knew that everybody had some pretty bad calls. And what we learned was that even some of Buncombe County, we took some of their own family members, and they had shared that if we had not been there to take those calls, they don't know that they could have gotten through their shifts, knowing that their families weren't okay, even though, and I know even being here, I have young kids in a regular activation. I'm worried about my kids and are they okay? Are they safe? And you really can't always call or check on them. And so that's something I'm always mindful of when my staff's here because I know they have families and they have kids and parents that they may care for. They want to make sure they're okay. But I can't imagine being in a center where my community is being hit and knowing that to that level of devastation and the calls you're getting and really wondering, is my family really okay? Um, but that's what telecommunicators do. They push through and work through it.
I fully agree. And whew, you had me there as well. I can only imagine that feeling. In what I'm going to say is not the same level, but it's whenever you get a compliment, a lot of times the response is, "Well, I was just doing my job," and it's kind of like that a little bit, and as the same type of concept there, where Buncombe, who got hit the way they did. I mean, everyone got hit there, but their spot seems to be the main spot of some of the a lot of devastation, and for them to be on the phone with all of you and to say that, like, thank you, and for your folks to be like you said, you guys are the ones, those we were your backup, but it's amazing that show of respect,
Mhm,
that the respect and the camaraderie that we
mhm,
have in this profession, not just with those out in the field, but all of us under the headset taking these calls and talking and everything. I mean, you understand,
mhm.
when you're talking to someone who has been there, like, you can feel it. It's like, this person
Yes.
knows what I'm talking about. Like,
Yes.
they've been through some shit. And it's oh man, I can't say enough about you, your crew, everyone in Buncombe, and just all the surrounding agencies, just and not just 911, but everyone coming together
Mhm,
and working and stuff, especially through something like this, having to hear everything that you heard, the not knowing, that's the
mhm,
biggest thing in 911 is we don't have that closure. And then for it to be like things like this, I mean, that just takes it to another level of not knowing. And you continue on. You go through your debriefings, you go through your therapy, your counseling, whichever it may be, and it sticks with you. But when you're ready to talk about it, you're able to manage it as well by
mhm,
facing it. But of course, again, it's when you're ready. Just like you said, there are some folks who are ready to talk about things and there's others who are not. And eventually, one day they may do so. And and
mhm,
and that'll be a good thing because that's when we start healing and finding closure through just simply talking with people that have been through similar situations or who were there as well. So thank you very, very much for sharing all of that and just for what you do and your team. And I just again, I can't say enough. This has been amazing having you on
Thank
and talking
you.
to you. And so I've got two questions for you
Okay.
as we go into the wrap up of this. With what we were just talking about here, your explanation, just all of it that you all went through, for anyone out there who is listening, who are in areas, and actually, I can't even say that are just in areas where hurricanes hit, because, I mean, look at Sally. You never would have thought that that would have happened the way it
Mhm.
happened. So to anyone, for any type of big situation, incident, fire, hurricane, any natural disaster, anything like that, I guess what is some advice that you might have for them, just, I guess, as an kind of an overview for big incidents, or what you might have to deal with as, the director of the center, and, your folks when you're being there for them?
Are you talking about for general public or are you talking about for our teams?
For teams. Yeah, for the teams.
Um, but we do before a storm comes, especially when our peak season starts obviously in the summer. So around May, we do talk to all our teams and we put out
Mhm.
training. Having a plan in place well in advance, knowing what the plan is, knowing that you have your families, pets, um, children, anything like that, you have a plan for them because you don't know when you're activated, you don't know if you're staying for a day or you're staying for 2 weeks. During Florence, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe we had a team that stayed 2 weeks in Raleigh, and then we had people staying overnight here for an extended period of time. Is making sure your home life is situated the best you can, and so you're not as worried about them in those situations. I know for me personally, I have no family here. My nearest family is in Alabama, and my husband, before moving here, had never experienced a hurricane. And I remember we had Dorian. It wasn't a whole lot of anything that came of it for us anyway. And I was like, I just need you to travel out west, go get a hotel, take a mini vacation, just go somewhere. Same with Isaias, nothing came of it. But for me, having that peace of mind
Mhm.
and knowing they're not here in the storm was better for me because I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to look at my phone to make sure I didn't miss a text that something's happened. And even in smaller storms, a tree falling on the house. When I worked Hurricane Ivan, a tree fell on a house, and we had a friend of ours who was pregnant with triplets, and she lost all three of her babies during that. And I know there's a lot of other stories, that people that can relate is giving yourself the peace of mind by making preparations in advance. Um, and finding a way afterwards, if you do lose all communication, figure out a plan on how you're going to like how are you going to get a message to one another that you're still okay. Because I know my family would be worried about me as well, but I also don't need them calling every few minutes given the career I'm in
Right.
to make sure I'm okay. But we do, in preparation of it, all of our supervisors here have been here for a good period of time, and they've worked through activations and all of that. So they're really good about meeting with all their staff, especially ones that haven't been through something like this, which that in particular, I don't think anybody's ever been through. But they do have things they tell them. They have lists what you need to do to prepare at home, as well as what you need to do to prepare to come into work and activate. And just making those plans in advance.
That's perfect. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for that. And my last question
Mhm.
for you, and when I ask this, it's not to change anything, because there's a lot of things that we experience that bring us to the person that we are today. Whatever lessons they are, hard lessons, easy lessons, whichever, it brings us to where we are at today. So, with everything that we've talked about and reflecting on your career, your journey, which again, it's been phenomenal to have you on. It's been an honor to hear your story. And if you could go back in time to talk to 17-year-old Hope as you are getting ready to take this plunge into something that you were just, going to get into, to get you through college. If you could go back in time after these 23 years just to talk to yourself, give yourself some advice or let yourself know that it's going to be okay, whichever, what would you say to yourself?
Oh, that's a tough one. It would probably be just to push through, because even with all the challenges, every center I've been at, I've learned and grown from.
Mhm.
But it would just be to push through. And that's something like when I was a trainee, it was a really humbling experience. My very beginning story. When I went to Troy is a little bit different. When I went to Augusta,
Mhm.
it was a humbling experience because I thought I was top of my game. And all of a sudden, I'm a trainee again. And I had built a training program twice before. And I was a CTO, a training officer. And there was some days I could have punched my trainer and been perfectly okay with the repercussions of it. And having been what I felt like was top of my game and really good at my job, and to going back in training, it was humbling because now I have a whole new appreciation of people going through training, because I think over time you forget what that was like. And
Yeah.
so I had 10 years and then I'm back in training again. And so the advice I give new hires now, anybody that gets hired on with us, they all get to spend about 2 hours with me. I feel so bad for them some days, but they do get 2 hours with me and they get a whole speech. But part of it is hard. It is not easy, but push through and don't quit. And I tell every one of them that, and I would probably tell myself that, because there's many times that actually I did quit 911. I left and said I wasn't coming back. And had I not had an application delivered to me, I would not be in 911 now. Um, yeah,
That's amazing. Thank you again. I,
thank
I I
you.
appreciate you, what you do, and your story is just, it's a powerful one. Again, thank you for everything that you do, and it's been awesome to have you on today.
Thank you so much. Thank
I will
you.
be right back here with you in just one moment. And
Okay.
for those who are watching and listening, if you have any questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, whether you are a new dispatcher, seasoned or retired, reach out to me. I would love to have you on the podcast and share your story. I have been doing this for over a decade now, and it's a passion of mine and an honor, and just to have your trust to be able to share your stories is, it's humbling. So thank you so very much. But please reach out. You can do, the easiest way to do is to simply go to links.co/I am 911. Once again, that is links, and that's links with two I's. .co/I am 911. You'll find everything there: email, social media, where to follow, where to hear the latest episodes of Within the Trenches podcast, as well as the Imagine Listening podcast, the free link to the Trenches community, where there is over 200 hours of free continuing education for 911 professionals, as well as 45 hours worth of the Dispatchers Roundtable. As we take a topic, we go live, and we share it. So all of this training is there, and it is for free. Again, it's a link for the Trenches community, and it, again, all free. Again, links with two I's.co/I am 911. And a big thanks to our sponsors and digital, as well as Rapid SOS. Shout out to subscribers of the podcast. This can be seen on Facebook, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn Live and X. And I have got clips of the show, as well as I am 911 stories from Imagine Listening and the I am 911 movement. And that is on Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, as well as TikTok. So you can find those there. And then you can listen to the podcasts 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one. Imagine listening to someone's worst day every single day. Imagine listening as someone experiences life, through their worst nightmare to the miracle of birth or a life saved. I'm Ricardo Martinez, a former 911 dispatcher, and for years, I've been recording the voices of a hidden world, ours.
I've provided a space for 911 dispatchers to share their powerful stories. It started as a peer support session and continues. Dispatchers sitting together, sharing out loud, or writing down what they couldn't say. Some stories will grip you. Stories of heartbreak, resilience, and calls that haunt us long after the line goes quiet. But imagine listening is more than heavy emotion. It's about healing. It's about laughing through the chaos, lifting each other up, and reminding the world that dispatchers are human too. The lighthearted will balance the heavy. Experience the power of storytelling, a podcast for the thin gold line and those who want to understand it. This is Imagine Listening. Your worst day is our everyday. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.